Hey, I'm Jesse Fernandez, and I'm going to teach you how to write a good joke. I hate being so bubbly. I'm going to teach you how to write a great joke, so stay tuned for that. I'm a comedy writer and comedian. I've been one for about 10 years. Oh, Jesus, that's a long time. I really enjoy making people laugh. It's super fun to do, but I thought of a way to help people in a different way, and that is to teach them how to write jokes, and so then they can make more people laugh, kind of pay it forward a little bit. So what I'm gonna do in this video is walk you through my process for how I create a joke. We'll see how the joke does. So stay tuned. Learn a bunch. Alright, I want to write a joke about the election. It's in the zeitgeist right now, and so everybody's thinking about it. They have strong feelings about it. It has a good chance of striking a chord with people. So I'm going to start down the path of finding a good joke about the election. I have nothing. I'm starting with absolutely nothing. So I'm just writing basically whatever comes to mind right now. This part, it's just kind of free writing, trying to get my brain going about something interesting, anything. I definitely know that I don't want to take a side, so it's limiting in what kind of joke I can do, but it also has less of a chance that I would be pushing some people out of the possibility of enjoying it, because if I make fun of their candidate, then they're probably not going to enjoy it. So I want something that everybody will like, and I think that everybody's pretty tired of people have election exhaustion. This election particularly is pretty fraught. So that's a note that I want to hit, but the complication there is that it's kind of a depressing note. So you don't want, the idea of jokes is not to bum people out. So there's a lot of maneuvering to resonate on that level with people, but also not make them feel bad as a result. So I'm going to write some ideas along those lines. Also, when you make guidelines for yourself, you should make them loose guidelines, because you might have an amazing idea that's outside of the guidelines that you set, and you'll never get to it if you hold those guidelines too firmly. So you just got to be completely free with what you do. Right now I'm writing some stuff. I don't think I've gotten anything great yet. Probably the first few ideas that will pop to mind are derivative. And you generally don't want to use those. There are certain elements of jokes that make them great or not great. One of them is the observation. Is the observation new and interesting? And if it's not new, who wants to write something that other people have written? That's boring. So I try to have observations that I haven't seen before. Sometimes I fail, and it's not the only factor, you know. You might have an observation that isn't completely new, but then your format for it, the vehicle that you use to deliver it, is just so interesting that it outweighs the observation factor. So that's a possibility too. You want to weigh every connotation you can think of, and like every possible nugget of information, like every concept, every direction you could go with this. You want to try and think of as many of those as you can, because one of those might be a better direction to go in. If I tweet something and then somebody gives it a tag or has a direction that I could have gone with it, like they just say something and I go like, oh man, I never thought of that, then I get a little bit frustrated with myself, because ideally I spend a little bit of time thinking about it. And if somebody sees what I wrote and then the first thing they think of is something that I never thought of, it's almost embarrassing. I should have considered everything. That's how I think about it. That being said, I really appreciate it when people give tags that I didn't think of, because it alerts me to the fact that I needed to do more thinking about my ideas. Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite. Remember Vote for Pedro? Kind of an old reference. Probably not going to go with this one. Although there's probably a significant amount of people who would remember that. It might be okay. you want to get the wording down too. Like you don't want people to have to read it twice. Like it has to flow. So Pedro has never had a better shot at getting write-in ballots. It doesn't immediately give meaning. You have to think about it a little bit. Getting write-in ballots. It's not really the language people use. Pedro has never had a better shot at getting write-in ballots. Pedro has never had a better shot at getting... And also, at getting write-in ballots, whatever. I'm sure he gets write-in ballots. He's gotten write-in ballots every year, every election since the movie came out. So that's not really the goal. Pedro has never had a better shot at getting elected through write-in ballots, maybe. I don't know. I'll play with that a little bit. But yeah, it's got to flow, and it has to immediately give meaning to the reader without them having to think about it again. Meaning just has to pour in easily. So one thing that's useful in jokes is the idea of implication. Like, I could say, nobody likes going to the voting booth. Nobody wants to go vote this year. Or something like that. It's like a really deliberate presentation of the observation. But that's not a joke. Every once in a while, an observation is so brilliant that you can get away with just stating the observation, but that's not ideal. So an implication would be better. So like something like masochist goes to the voting booth and freaking loves it. I don't think that hits the note as hard as I would like to. I probably won't go with that, but it is implying rather than stating that voting for regular people sucks. At least this time. Another implication, voting this election, and then a picture of some kind of Sophie's Choice, where like a bad thing this way, a bad thing the other way, you know. That's potential. Pictures make it a lot easier to get humor. You know, that whole like picture's worth 1,000 words thing. It's pretty true. One of the things that's useful to know on Twitter specifically is that pictures tend to get more interaction from people than words. I think they're a little bit catchier as people go through their feed. They're more likely to notice a picture than they are to notice some words and then read that. Also, people are more likely to click on the picture because Twitter truncates the picture, or not truncates, but it crops the picture in the view as you go down the feed. You have to click on the picture to see the whole thing. It's just like automatically a little bit more interesting or alluring. This one's a good one because it has a kind of a red herring. A red herring is basically leading people to think one thing is going to happen. When that's not actually what happens. And this joke very quickly does that. A vote for Trump is a vote for, and that's kind of like, that's the cliche, so you kind of have an idea of where that would go, and then it breaks from that cliche into a lot of people learning how to spell Armageddon. It's a vote for a lot of people learning how to spell Armageddon. I wanted to look up Armageddon because it might have more biblical reference or biblical connotation than I want. So I should make sure it means what I think it means, which is that it's just the end of the world rather than the biblical end of the world. If it holds a biblical connotation to everybody, then it's going to raise more questions, and that this joke just doesn't answer. So you can't like confuse people. Like, you really don't want them to have to think twice before they get the joke. What this one lacks, though, is it is taking a side. So it would be splitting my audience. So I'm not sure if I want to do that. Also, there have been plenty of people making fun of Trump. You know, however you feel about Trump, like him or hate him, the idea that Trump is, bad, it's not a very new observation. I don't know if putting that out on Twitter is going to be very interesting to people. It is a good joke, though, and people do feel very strongly about Trump. Changed Pedro joke to a write-in election. It might be better, might not. I don't think I've gotten the right wording yet. Shot at a write-in election. Because people don't say that. Like, that doesn't immediately mean anything to anyone. A write-in election. I'll come back to it. Maybe. One of the biggest lessons about Twitter, and probably the hardest, for me at least, because I'm impatient, is that you have to keep your finger off of that trigger. It's so easy to just like think of a thing, go like, this couldn't possibly be improved, and then send it out there. Because you just want to stop thinking about it. You're just like, it gets almost stressful. You're like, what if it's great? What if it's good enough? What if I'm wasting my time thinking about it more? But you're more likely to get a better joke rather than a worse one by thinking about it more. So I recommend, even if you think the joke is perfect, if it's not extremely time sensitive, then wait a little bit, and come back to it later, or keep thinking about it. Think of more alternatives and options, and because you might get to a much better joke. So I'm not going to tweet the Trump one, the Trump Armageddon thing. I'm going to keep thinking about it. Hopefully get to something better. There are a lot of like little ins and outs and rules and exceptions to rules and complications that affect the way a joke will be perceived by your audience. So there are just it's a puzzle that you have to figure out. Every joke is a kind of a social and language puzzle. A lot of this is iteration. Once you get to a joke that you want to tell, then it's a matter of writing different versions of it until you get to the right one. The one that flows really easily, that doesn't have any mysterious connotations where people would be like, well, does he mean this or does he mean that? It is explicitly about the thing that you're talking about rather than ambiguous about whatever. Ideally, it has surprise, it resonates, other factors that I can't remember at the moment, but as they come up, I'll mention them. Right now, I'm seeing if there are any bits or pieces of this that I can take out without damaging the joke. If you can get a joke to its shortest possible length without affecting its quality, then you want to do that. The faster you can hit people with these things, the better. So over the next 4 years, not entirely necessary. I think I'm going to change Armageddon to Apocalypse because it's about spelling. And Apocalypse is more difficult to spell than Armageddon. It's going to resonate harder with people if they're learning how to spell something that they are more likely to have not known how to spell previously. I'm also trying to see if there's a way that I can tell this without taking a side, because that was one of the original goals that I had, was that I didn't want to throw away part of my audience. It's so tempting to just send out a tweet. It's just right there. You press one button and it's out there. And then you get to find out if it's successful or not. But you can't put out a tweet and then put out a better version of it. I mean, you can, but it's just not going to do as well. It won't, because part of your audience will have seen your earlier version of the tweet, and then it kind of puts a stink on the next version. They're not going to love or be as surprised by the next version. So you kind of want to wait and just get the best version of a tweet before you send it out. One thing this iteration of the joke is missing is the spelling part. Like, people, the spelling of the word apocalypse, if you hit that note, then you are also hitting the note that people are interested in the word apocalypse. Whereas if you just do a thing about Google searches, then all you're hitting is the note about people being interested in apocalypse, but you're not also hitting the note about how it's hard to spell apocalypse. So ideally, you'd pack both of those observations into one by just talking about the spelling part. I'm seeing if there's anything in the apocalypse notion, the interest that people have in the word apocalypse going up. because of this election. I bet there I bet there is a correlation. So that might be an interesting observation to give to people. Looks like it has been steadily rising. There's a weird peak in May. I wonder what happened there. I bet some of these little spikes, I bet some of them were like a movie came out with the word apocalypse in it, or a video game or something. But it looks like it has been steadily rising since around mid-2015. Every one of these I'm going to be telling like little rules and exceptions to rules and things that I can remember as I'm writing it. And as you watch more of these, you'll be able to fill the new information into a larger and larger knowledge base until you've got an expansive tool set that you can use when you're writing jokes to write better and better jokes. It doesn't really have a red herring in this iteration of the joke. It does a little bit in that you think that at least part, what comes after the phrase at least, is going to be about the election, and then it's not. It's not the best surprise or the most surprising surprise. On the bright side is a better phrase to use in this context than at least we can all agree, because on the bright side implies, it's a little bit more of a red herring because it implies that there's going to be something positive. And then part of the surprise is that the positive thing that I say, quote unquote positive, is a very, very thin silver lining on a pretty dark cloud. So I think it hits that note that it's a dark time without being a depressing message. And it also highlights the contrast between the silver lining and the gray cloud. So, on the bright side is more meaningful than at least we can all agree. In this context, at least. Alright, I'm going to look up apocalypse, because if I spell it wrong, then it kind of ruins the joke. Here, let me explain why it ruins the joke. In this joke, I know what I'm talking about. If I spell it wrong, then I don't. So it would be a contradiction. I can't say that I know what I'm doing if I prove that I don't know what I'm doing. It makes me look like a dummy, which is fine if that's the joke that you're going for. It might be possible to do both jokes at once. But if I merely spell apocalypse wrong right now, it wouldn't even hit that note hard enough. It would be a lot more likely that people read it as a mistake. And it does damage the other joke that I'm trying to go for. So I want to avoid that and just hit the notes that I'm hitting as hard as possible. So I'm going to make sure that I spelled apocalypse correctly. Just make sure I got everything right. People reading this know that I don't know for a fact that people are learning to spell apocalypse correctly. So I'm going to hedge my bets and make sure people can't make that complaint by saying, I bet a lot of people are learning to spell apocalypse correctly. I bet. I think that's a safer way to say this. It also makes the silver lining aspect of it a lot thinner of a silver lining, because I can't even say definitively that people are learning to spell apocalypse correctly. All this bad stuff is happening politically, and the best I can say is that I bet people are learning to spell apocalypse correctly. It makes that contrast between the fact that I'm saying there's a bright side and the thinness of the bright side more. There's a wider contrast there now. Now I've got a nice framework for this joke, and I wonder if something other than apocalypse might be better, like plutocracy. I think the problem with plutocracy, though, is that not enough people know what plutocracy means, and so I'd be losing part of my audience because of that factor. I go to Google quite a bit looking for synonyms for words. It's super useful. Thesauruses are great. Thesauri? Thesauruses. So I'm just looking for words that might be better than apocalypse. It's got to be something that is hard to spell, but also has meaning to people. Apocalypse is probably fine. Where you put the comma is important too. Like, I put in a comma after contentious. This election is contentious, but on the bright side, I bet a lot of people are learning how to spell apocalypse correctly or something like that. But I could have put a comma after on the bright side, but that would slow down the reading of the sentence, which is not good. You want people to, and this is like generally, there are obviously exceptions to all these rules, but you want people to read faster, like as fast as easily possible for them. Like you want it to flow so well that they just go like a freight train right into the punchline. It'll be more surprising if they're not taking these little split-second pauses to think about what might be ahead. So I use commas pretty sparingly once it gets closer to the punchline. The election is contentious, but on the bright side, I bet a lot of people are learning how to spell apocalypse correctly. Now, it's different in a spoken format than in a reading format. You can take like different beats and things like that when you're telling a joke. But when an audience is reading a joke, there are some different rules. You have to let punctuation be the timing. Correctly is redundant because learning to spell apocalypse implies that you learn to spell it correctly. The problem is it doesn't flow as well. I bet a lot of people are learning how to spell apocalypse. If there's something even slightly better, then it's better to use that. So I'm just searching around. I'm probably going to go with having the word correctly in there. Every vote counts as it's a cliche. It's a cliche that I might be able to write a joke about. It really would be a back to the drawing board moment, though. I'd be starting over. I think I've got a pretty good joke with the this election is contentious, but on the bright side, etc. With apocalypse, not plutocracy. I think apocalypse is a better word to use in this context because more people know what it means, and it is difficult to spell, and it hits it resonates with people on that emotional level. Like, people are worried. All right, I sent it out. We'll see how it does. I think it'll do pretty well. All right, that's that. I put the tweet up, and it did well. I have a personal rubric for myself for what I consider a successful tweet, and that is if it gets 70 likes within the first 2 days, then I'll consider it a success. And this tweet did 140-ish in the first 2 days, so it almost doubled, or doubled, I can't remember, the amount that is a cutoff for me considering it a success. So it did well. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm gonna keep posting these things. They're like pretty easy to do, so and I'm writing the things anyway, so I might as well. Anyway, subscribe if you're into that kind of thing. I also put funny videos up. Videos of me doing stand-up, handling hecklers, little sketches. I should maybe focus, but I probably won't because there's just so much fun stuff to do. Anyway, if you're down with that, go ahead and subscribe. And thank you for watching. See you guys. Bye.